Hi, we're group number 5 and we're looking at the 100-mile diet in relation to the carbon cycle. Every day people have to decide what to eat and where to source it from. These decisions hugely impact the environment and the carbon cycle. Therefore, our diet is a huge factor in our carbon footprint. To combat this impact, various diets have been introduced and considered. We will explore the 100-mile diet specifically, which has been a source of controversy but which altruistically aims to reduce carbon emissions in a relatively radical way. Globally, the food chain system produces 16,900 megatons of CO2 annually, which is almost a third of global greenhouse gas emissions. The carbon cycle is an example of the law of conservation of energy, which states matter cannot be created or destroyed. The carbon in the form of CO2 in the atmosphere is used by plants to make carbohydrates during photosynthesis. These plants are then consumed by other organisms such as animals and humans, passing the carbon compounds along the food chain. Carbon is the building block for biological molecules and fuel necessary to sustain life. CO2 is exhaled during respiration, ending up in the air, water, earth, and the cycle begins again. Dead organisms over time under the right conditions can turn into what we call fossil fuels, such as coal, petroleum, and natural gas, which is used by humans to get energy for cars and heating. Unfortunately, the environment can only absorb about 40% of the CO2 that is produced yearly, and the excess of carbon causes global warming. So the 100-mile diet was a book written by 2 Vancouverites living in Kitsilano, and they wrote this book about local eating. This book became a local diet and gained a lot of attention. So we looked at the engineering trade-offs between local eating and non-local eating, which is our conventional current food system. We looked at fast, cheap, and good. We defined fast as change of diet and time spent to access food. So if you don't have to spend a lot of time learning new diets and spend a lot of time to get your foods, that means it's fast. Good meant low carbon, and cheap meant low cost. We found that the 100-mile diet is good and it can be cheap. What the authors of the book idealized in the book is cheap. They described themselves as biking to a farm or to a farmer's market and getting their food and coming back, which has low carbon emission. It is cheap, but it is very time consuming and it's not fast. And we concluded that that is not possible for everyone. Let's say for a single parent who is working overtime to make ends meet, they don't have time to spend that much time to get food. So it is not viable for everyone. Our current food system is cheap and fast. It focuses on low cost and year-round supply and immediate supply, going to Walmart and picking something up quickly. But it is no good because it has high carbon emissions. Based on data from US Department of Agriculture, results showed that freight transportation accounted for only 6% of the total food emission. So we can see that transportation, contrary to popular belief, is not that big of a deal. Production and processing dominate by 81.6% of total emissions produced by food. For animal-based products, this emission, however, for transportation is only 3%, and that is due to the high emission in the processing and production process. For plant-based, however, it's only 16%, but this has nothing to do with the difference in transportation. It has to do with the fact that processing and production of plant-based products has much lower emission. So solely based on production, meat, cheese, and eggs have significantly higher carbon footprint than, let's say, lentils and nuts. So as you can see, changing dietary patterns to a more plant-based can bring reductions up to 7 to 80%. A variety of these diets have been introduced and considered, such as vegetarian and the Mediterranean diet. Researchers compared environmental impacts of shifting current average dietary intakes to a variety of proposed sustainable dietary patterns. They considered greenhouse gas emissions, land use, and water intake. The largest environmental benefits across indicators were seen in those diets which most reduced the amount of animal-based products, such as vegan, vegetarian, or pescatarian diets. So as we saw, the 100-mile diet has its drawbacks and benefits. Being aware of these benefits and drawbacks empowers people with the knowledge that allows them to decide when and when not to engage with the 100-mile diet. The 100-mile diet is a way to eat consciously, which is an important endeavor. However, by using consciousness, which everyone who's informed on the carbon cycle is equipped with, we can make good decisions about what we eat without subscribing to the somewhat problematic diet. One very good decision that reduces carbon impacts in a substantial way is choosing plant-based alternatives to meat. First, let's consider two situations where you can apply this good decision: in business and in policy. First, in business. Everyday consumers must decide what to eat and where to get it. Businesses that supply food must consider what they supply and where they are going to get it from. Therefore, both have agency to reduce their carbon impact by choosing plant-based alternatives. Secondly, in policymaking. Policy involves institutionalizing initiatives to create widespread change. If you're involved in policymaking, initiate and support policy that encourages plant-based diets, provide subsidies to businesses that have plant-based mandates, support larger initiatives in a shift toward plant-based items, such as providing food banks with funds to acquire plant-based foods. Overall, the 100-mile diet demonstrates good intention, but does not incorporate the complexities of the carbon cycle. By being educated on carbon impact, we can be conscious eaters, choosing the 100-mile diet when it is the best option. Reducing CO2 emissions related to food is very complex. However, many studies point to one solution. Choosing to consume plant-based foods is a way to be carbon considerate. This mirrors the good intention of the 100-mile diet, but ultimately makes a bigger impact in carbon reduction.